Hi everyone, welcome to my brand spanking new channel, and while I may be new to YouTube, I have been breaking down TV shows and movies over my blog for several years now. You can check that out at www.maydaymaggie.com. Over there I do more scene-by-scene recaps, and over here I'll be answering questions from episodes, making some theories, and looking for those Easter eggs. I will leave links to my blog down below. Let's jump into these episodes because this is going to be a long video. One of the first things we notice in the new Marvel opening is that they've included video clips from the Endgame as it fades into this black and white sitcom. To kind of explain overall what's happening here, Wanda herself is in the current MCU timeline. That puts this in about August of 2023. But somehow Wanda has found herself in this pocket dimension that has made this 1960s sitcom, specifically August 23rd, 1961, based on the calendar in the kitchen. While the theming of this episode does feel very I Love Lucy, with Wanda sometimes breaking the fourth wall and her wardrobing, I Love Lucy ran from 1951 to 1957, but this episode actually pulls from the Dick Van Dyke Show, which premiered in 1961. Van Dyke himself consulted on this episode to bring that era of comedy to life. Getting into the episode, we begin with a very Dick Van Dyke opening. Wanda and Vision moving into Westview as just a regular husband and wife. Westview is a reference to West Coast Avengers, which is a series we're going to pull from a lot as far as the children and their origin. There is the mailman. I find him very suspicious. I don't know why. I'll talk about it later when he comes up again in episode 2. They mark this house sold, and one clue to the location as to where they are is the area code on the sign, 732, which puts them in and around New Jersey somewhere. This could mean they're close to Camp Lehigh, the birthplace of Captain America and S.H.I.E.L.D. We did see that location blow up in Winter Soldier, but there could be other S.H.I.E.L.D. or sword related things around. We also have another reference in the house number, which is a reference to Avengers issue 280, where Jarvis comes back to the Avengers. Vision, who recently died and was created from the Jarvis program, so it seems fitting that this would be his first appearance since his death. We have that funny moment of Vision walking through the door but Wanda not making it through. This could be a callback to Wanda complaining about that very same thing back in Captain America Civil War. However, when phasing through the chair a minute later, it seems like Wanda has adapted to this situation. The first obvious Easter egg is Wanda banging Vision in the head with a plate and her making the comment about Vision's indestructible head. Yes, it is made of vibranium, but we all saw Infinity War. Not only is it not indestructible, but coincidentally another instance where Vision himself was colorless. I want to point out what he said though, my wife and her flying saucers. Yes, this could just be him calling a plate a saucer, but are aliens present? Maybe? Am I grasping? We do have Skrull in the MCU officially now, and we do have Secret Invasion coming up, so I don't think I'm reading too far into this. There are references to Vision not eating as we move into the calendar. Like I said, this places us in 1961, but for the plot it brings up this heart drawn in that neither one of them really remember. They both play along with not wanting the other one to know that it's something that they forgot. The next big thing is who I think is likely one of the antagonists, and that's Agnes. This is most likely short for Agatha Harkness, and in the comics, Agatha is a companion to Wanda, but also working for Mephisto. Agnes is a sorceress with powers similar to Doctor Strange, and I find myself hanging on every single one of her words. One of the first things she says is Wanda, charmed, which could explain the state that Wanda is in. She also mentions to Wanda that she's a single gal, when in reality, Wanda is a single gal. Vision is dead, so Wanda is technically in here alone. In this conversation with Agnes, Wanda realizes that it must be their anniversary. Agnes tells her that she shouldn't have to do much, but she needs to set the scene. She then references her husband Ralph, who we fail to see in both of these episodes, but Agnes brings up several times. Over with Vision, he's working at a computation business, which is just a play on Vision being a computer himself. We do find the origin to the heart on the calendar, which is a dinner party with his boss, Mr. Hart. These seem to be a big deal since it ended Phil's career. And Phil is actually Dottie's husband from episode 2, but we'll get all into her later. Back at the house, Wanda and Agnes are reading Glamorous magazine, which could have inspired Wanda's sidekick name, glamour in the magic show in episode 2, and I want to talk about that later. We then stumble into seduction techniques. Wanda conceiving and having children is going to be very important in this series, and Agnes seems to really be pushing that along here. Now, to one of the 2 commercials. The first one takes place in episode 1. Some things I've noticed from the background here before we get to the toaster is that there's a clock on the wall, which seems to be a theme. There's also a lobster on the wall, which happens later this episode. Wait, could this be Bill the Lobster? I mean that mostly as a joke. There's also the chicken from the dinner party as well. The commercial itself is for a toaster that is not only made by Stark Technologies, but makes that repulsor sound when it starts up. However, as the commercial goes on, the sound is almost like ticking down to something. Like I said in my blog, this could be a reference to the bomb that was dropped on Wanda's childhood home, which was also made by Stark Technologies. This is what inspired their anger towards Tony in Age of Ultron. To reinforce that this is from Wanda's past, the slogan from the toaster is, "Forget the past, this is your future." Basically telling her to let go of everything that she has lost and just look ahead. This is also the very first instance of color this episode. And with the panicked look from the commercial woman's face, this countdown does have some type of significance. The next reference is a reminder that we are still in the Marvel Universe. When Wanda sneaks up unknowingly behind Mr. Hart in her nightgown, and Vision writes this off as her being Sokovian, which is obviously a big location in the MCU. Then we have another visit from Agnes as she saves the dinner. Ralph really liked baked beans and a snap reference. Yes, that snap, or that snap, or that snap. Wanda does her magic in the kitchen with the chicken, first overcooking it and then turning back time to the point where it's an egg. She deploys the tactics that her and Agnes discussed earlier to distract Mr. Hart while he's getting tired of the shenanigans. And then Agnes stops by yet again with a pineapple. I don't have a reference for this pineapple other than Dole is partnered with Disney, and back when Captain Marvel was released, she was on a pineapple. Hey, I don't make these things up. I have proof. Wanda ends up making the breakfast she had talked about earlier in the episode for Vision, followed by that wine bottle. The label says Maison de Mépris, which roughly translates to House of Contempt, but is most likely a nod to the House of M comics, and this is the MCU's version of those events. A series of questions during dinner creates this first real moment of Wanda almost zoning out and questioning this sitcom. What is your story? And when Mr. Hart pushes it, he chokes. However, no one moves to help him. Mrs. Hart just keeps saying stop it with a smile on her face that turns almost panicky as the scene progresses. Much like she is begging for Wanda herself to stop it, as if she is the cause. There is more ticking like in the commercial, and while Wanda looks horrified and Vision looks almost afraid, like he's watching it play out but can't do anything to stop it, not until Wanda tells him to save Mr. Hart, revealing his powers. After that, dinner is abruptly ended, and even though this was a mess, it still works in Vision's favor with him getting a possible promotion. And then we have Bob the Lobster again. We just have Wanda and Vision wrapping things up with Vision dropping the disguise. They made today their anniversary, their song's officially Yickety Yak, and then Wanda gives them the Bewitched style rings. We then pull out of the show into a hexagonal shape. However, as the credits roll, we see that this episode is actually being watched by S.W.O.R.D. And we know that because the S.W.O.R.D. logo is here and here. If you're unfamiliar with S.W.O.R.D., they are an intelligence agency created by Nick Fury after the fall of S.H.I.E.L.D. in the MCU. In the comics, they serve as a counterpart to S.H.I.E.L.D. that worked more on extraterrestrial threats, while S.H.I.E.L.D. kept their feet on the ground. They were also mentioned in Spider-Man Far From Home with Nick on the S.W.O.R.D. ship Peak in the post-credit scene. There are a few S.W.O.R.D. agents that we already know and we will be seeing on the show. We have Jimmy Woo, who was an FBI agent on Ant-Man and the Wasp. There's Darcy from Thor. She's actually the one taking the notes here. And then Monica Rambeau, who I'll talk about more since she's obviously in episode 2. You can distinctly hear helicopters as well. So I think this is actually happening in like a van outside of that big red bubble we saw in the trailers, trying to understand what's happening on the inside. Getting into episode 2, we have a change show style to the later 60s Bewitched vibe. Wanda doing a very Bewitched magic with the lights and moving of the beds. The story here is that there's a loud thud that wakes them both up. Vision has this like comedic scared act, and they talk about vandals in the neighborhood, which is going to prompt Vision later to do the neighborhood watch meeting. For now, though, they write the sound off to tree branches, but in reality, this is sword agents on the outside attempting to get in. Then we are into this cartoon opening that matched the Bewitched theme. More hexagons, you can see them in the stars, and they seem to be a visual theme for now. And I just want to continue to point them out because they're everywhere. And if they become important, I want to say, hey, I saw that. The Westview sign, home is where you make it, literally talking about this being a design by Wanda herself. It's Wanda's vision. Vision then phases through the shower, the walls, and disguises himself in the human form. But when he goes to the floor, there are some possible Easter eggs here. There's this Grim Reaper helmet, and in the comics, Grim Reaper is the brother of Wonder Man. And Wonder Man was the creator of Vision. So this is just an origins nod to Vision. Grim Reaper is a villain, obviously, with a name like that. And their mother was Martha. Don't tell Batman. Anyway, there are also spider webs, which could be a reference to Spider-Man or just that they have spiders. Anyway, in the grocery store, we have several interesting Easter eggs. First of all, we have the first look of Monica Rambeau, or as she's going to be called in this reality, Geraldine. On those banners, though, we have yet another call out to Wonder Man. We have the Bova milk ad, which actually connects to Wanda and Quicksilver's origin in the comics. Bova was kind of their foster mom. She was also a cow, so, you get it. And then Auntie A's kitty litter, which is another reference to Agatha Harkness and her familiar Ebony the cat. Then we stroll through the neighborhood with everyone waving to them. Of course, Agnes and her rabbit, which I feel is a reference to Ebony the cat, who she later refers to as the star of the show. The next scene is Wanda and Vision practicing their magic act for the talent show. Vision's name is Illusion, which is ironic because he really is an illusion in the entire show. He's dead. He's an illusion. And again, Wanda being glamour could be a reference to her powers or that she's under some type of spell. Or both. Then comes the Cabinet of Mysteries. I honestly think this is a reference to Harry Keller, and he was an illusionist from the early 1900s that had these portraits commissioned to promote his shows. And here's the poster for the Cabinet of Mysteries. Now notice the little devils, and I think that's a reference to Mephisto, and he also had another act called Dreamland, which also has a sorceress and little devils in it too. I mean, that could not have anything to do with it, but it's just something I knew about, so I thought I'd bring up. The cabinet itself has imagery for the Mind Stone, obviously important to both of these characters. And he says his vow here is that he's going to bring her back exactly as she is. But isn't that what Wanda is doing here? Or at least is attempting to do, is to bring Vision back exactly as he was? When Vision raises the flag that maybe this is a little unrealistic, she raises the point that this is their home now and she wants to fit in. So she has no intention of leaving. When headed out to the planning committee for this talent show, we have another reminder of reality. If you listen closely when she's fixing this pillow, you can hear helicopter blades before a loud thud, like the night before. Wanda heads out to investigate and finds the helicopter in the rosebush. Not only is it brightly colored in Iron Man red and gold, but it also has the sword logo. We have this very Twilight Zone moment as Wanda tries to rectify this modern toy helicopter in this 60s sitcom around her. The probable explanation is that this is actually a helicopter that crashed or landed inside the bubble. Since Monica appears for the first time later this episode, maybe this is how she got in. Anyway, breaking her from this moment is Agnes, calling her the star of the show. Or is the rabbit the star? Yes, the rabbit is important, and I believe it's either Agatha's familiar, like I said, or it could actually be Mephisto himself. I don't know. The exchange here with the mailman Dennis and Agnes is interesting to me. He makes a comment about just being a messenger, and I know that as a mailman he technically is just a messenger, but in a show like this everything has meaning, and you can't tell me otherwise. Agnes then does the handguns, and I'm not sure, but Dennis is totally sus. At the planning committee, there are a few things I want to talk about. The first is obviously the devil is in the details. Dottie says this, which is a pretty common saying, but Agnes leaning over to Wanda and saying that's not the only place he is was probably the most blaring Mephisto clue yet, especially since it's coming straight from Agnes herself. Then we have the introduction of Monica Rambeau. There are some clues that suggest that Monica has recently been embedded in this fantasy and is a little confused. First off, she says herself that she doesn't even know why she's here. Like, she got off the helicopter and then boom, is in a 60s sitcom. She then gives the name Geraldine, but really struggles with coming up with a name like she made it up on the spot. Just another quick thing about Geraldine. The pin that she's wearing is the same as the Doctor Strange symbol, which makes me think that maybe he has some kind of protection spell on her before she entered the bubble or when she was in the helicopter, or that, it's just a reminder that Doctor Strange could be around. Meanwhile, Dottie is giving her a spiel on the talent show and how important it is to be perfect because
all of this is for the children.
For the children.
After the meeting ends, Wanda helps clean up the party. Wanda tries to talk to Dottie about maybe they got off on the wrong foot, but Dottie actually seems to think that Wanda is a threat. Of course, this could be because Vision got a promotion while her husband was fired, but I think it definitely cuts deeper than that. Wanda specifically says, "I don't mean anyone any harm," like she's trying to reassure Dottie, but Dottie doesn't believe her, which upsets Wanda. Maybe Wanda being upset weakens this illusion she's in. We see it ourselves when Wanda begins to become upset, much like she was at the dinner party. A moment later, we hear Jimmy Woo coming over the radio, trying to get a hold of Wanda. Sword is under the impression that something is being done to Wanda, and this leads Dottie out questioning, right, "Wanda, who are you?" followed by the glass breaking in Dottie's hand and that bright red gash. Since this is in color, I think it's real, like Dottie was actually hurt by this interaction with Wanda. But a moment later, we are snapped back into the illusion. Over at the library, Vision attends Neighborhood Watch. Probably the best part of this for me was that Vision straight up calls Norma communist, which would be pretty taboo for the time period, which is most likely why we had that awkward moment and then laughing. Of course, the plot point here is that he swallows the gum, which clogs up his gears, making him gum drunk later. Now, to the second commercial. With the same couple as in the first commercial. These are the same people. This time I almost get like a James Bond vibe, as the narrator tells us that a man only needs a woman and a watch. Yet another reference to time and ticking, like with the toaster at the dinner party. The obvious clue here is that the watch is named Strucker, the Hydra scientist that used the Mind Stone to give or unlock Wanda's powers, and then the Hydra symbol. The talent show becomes problematic because Vision is gum drunk and Wanda is attempting to keep their powers secret. She does attempt to tell Vision about the strange things that have been going on, but he's too drunk to really talk about it. More of this.
For the children.
For the children.
But these scenes are hilarious, but not too many Easter eggs other than Vision using his power. When we get to the Cabinet of Mysteries, first, yes, Agnes, your husband is really going to be important, but Viz messes it up so badly that Wanda is left using her magic to put Geraldine in the box, much to Geraldine's surprise. After the show, Wanda fixes the gum drunk situation, and then they try to duck out, thinking that they ruined the show, but they were then awarded the most comedic act. Once arriving home, I think the real surprises happen. Not only does Wanda become magically pregnant after saying it's for the children, there's another loud thud outside. When heading outside, they discover that the loud noise is a man coming up from the manhole in the ground. The first notable thing is that he's wearing a bee suit with actual bees around him. In reality, I think he's probably wearing more like a chemical suit, but the reality warping of the situation's making it a bee suit. There's the sword logo on the back, and he seems like he's going to be a scary character. But honestly, I think that that's just Wanda's perspective. I think he's probably just a sword agent trying to figure out what the hell's going on. But she doesn't want this time with Vision and her children to end. So Wanda says, "No." And then they rewind. This really just goes to show that she is the one writing the script for this show, even though I don't think she actually put herself here. We are rewound back to the moment after finding out about the baby, but this time instead of a thud, Vision becomes full color, followed by the entire room. We then zoom out to yet another hexagon, with Jimmy Woo again asking, who is doing this to Wanda? Well, that's all I have for you guys for this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and leave a comment, and you could be featured in my next video. I will have other videos up this week. Specifically, I'm planning a Batwoman video, which will be up on either Tuesday or Wednesday of this coming week. So don't forget to check out that. And then I'll be back next Friday, Saturday, and Sunday with a Wandavision blog, a Wandavision video, and a podcast.